D'Angelo, I'm so glad that you're here today, and I'm thrilled to have discovered your photographs. The way it happened was that I had several friends who were collectors, friends of mine who were collectors and collectors who I respect and admire, kept telling me about your work and kept saying, Bernard, you should really look at D'Angelo's work. I think he's a great artist and his photographs would be a great fit for your collection. And so I did look at your work and I found that I really responded to it. One of the things I love so much about it is that, your photographs, they deal with, issues that I really care about: race, family, sexuality, and that you manage to treat those subjects from a very personal standpoint, but while also saying a lot about society and culture. So there's this very nice balance in your work between the personal and the political, and the private and the public. And so when it came down to the Young, Gifted, and Black exhibition, when the curators were looking at the photographs of ours in our collection that we had from you, they chose The Lovers from 2017, which I was, of course, thrilled about because it was the very first photograph of yours that we acquired. And so I'm really excited now to hear from you more about that particular photograph, what it means to be in this exhibition with that photograph, and also just what that work means to you in terms of your work as a whole.
Well, first, thanks for inviting me to talk about the image, and thanks for also collecting my work and just having this sort of relationship with me that, people don't often get to see between artists, collectors, or people who, love art in general, and especially care about Black and queer voices. But yeah, so The Lovers, I'm the fact that it's in the show with all of the other artists currently at Lehman College, it's nice to be able to be in the same room and space as a lot of great minds and just people who have always made work that they cared about, and who existed, and talk about. That's one of the more important things for me, is to have conversations about narratives that have been overlooked, people, situations, and that's what I try to put into the work so that can continue throughout history. So The Lovers, being in the show is pretty spectacular. It's one of the more noticeably Black and queer images, without anyone even having to talk about it when you see it in the show or anywhere. But I definitely was in this sort of headspace of, I'm getting to know my own body. I'm beginning to let other men in my life, and I want to see what that looks like in photographs. But I'm also, I made the image when I was in grad school. My second year, it was a 3-year program, but at Syracuse. But it was after I had been told that the work that I was making my first year was too perfect, too pretty, things that I needed to, diversify and change, anything really. But it was me wanting to emote more, show this sort of, I guess, intimacy that wasn't necessarily sexual, but it was definitely between two Black gay men. But I was thinking about all of the different perspectives to come to that, or to get to the specific things that I wanted to talk about. One thing that's important to me, ability, and I grapple with the fact that some Black women don't want to be seen, don't want to be noticed, don't want to be, identified as Black or queer, or, so the do-rag became one of them, and I ended up switching the do-rag backwards, and I wanted to use it as this sort of veil to represent so many different things when it came to identity and Blackness, and not being able to fully see someone. but that definitely was inspired by my love of surrealism and imagination, the history of art and painting for a lot of inspiration, but specifically with The Lovers, it was a reference to Rene Magritte's The Lovers, which we can all assume depicts a white couple underneath those sacks. And I wanted to be able to, it wasn't to like change history or, change the future, but it was to, one, be a part of the conversation of why we don't see many representations of Black and queer, intimacy, sexuality, narratives, all of these different things that I'm talking about and people before me who have, also been overlooked or still talking about, with their work. So relationship to the people that I photograph, who aren't always, sexual partners. I photograph friends, family, and occasionally lovers, depending on, timing of like my life. I look to my life a lot to make my work, but also I'm inspired by history as we know it, things that we have or haven't seen, and just commenting on like how those things are reflected in the lives that many of us live. And the most important part about like producing images and I basically want to hold people's histories accountable, for being wherever you are in the world right now. It's like you got there somehow, and some people are, well off than others, even with today's situations, and other people aren't, and there are reasons for that. So I look to history to keep those discussions, being in the same room as Carrie James Marshall or Dina Lawson, and even younger people like Tunji's work, which I love, and Chanel Thomas, Chiffon, like all of these different intergenerational conversations are important.
That was great, D'Angelo. Can you
Yes.
say a few more words just about the photograph itself in the context of your work as a whole, like how it fits in, how it's different, how it connects with other themes in your work, portraiture, self-portraiture? That would be great.
In relation to the rest of my work, first images that I made, where I started including the men in the work. So it was like I didn't really know where I would go with making images with other people. And it's always been Black queer men, however they identify. And I wanted to diversify, the bodies that I was showing in my work, based on what I was seeing, what we all have seen in many iterations of media, thin-bodied white male, masculine, desirable bodies, and that looks different for a lot of people. So I wanted to definitely have that conversation within the work, and eventually it got to that. And people have asked me questions about, like, why am I covering the faces in the image? Like, are the people in the image of the lovers, like on the down low, on the DL, which I wasn't really like thinking about that as a part of the image, but all of those interpretations, like, definitely I'm not opposed to or anything like that. So it's one particular part of many narratives to have an image different from it, not necessarily a part of the same body of work, but with other Black men are now being positioned in conversation, to be in conversation with images of me and my family. And I want to, see how those different narratives cross, and, how is it how's my relationship or anyone's relationship, if they're Black or queer, with their family? Do they have a relationship? and also this idea of family and what that is. Now, you know, like chosen family is everything, you know. And I think that once I started um, making more work and figuring out exactly how I want to talk about it and what I want to show, whether that be someone nude or not nude, how all of those things matter in the ways that I'm showing them, perspective-wise. I think for me, it's been more important to not basically diversify my work to please you. This existed for someone or something, um, and it was like once that clicked for me, the perspective of which I like, I don't really. Some people would consider me an academic or a scholar, but I'm like, yes, I went to grad school. Yes, it helped me, you know, like figure out a bunch of things, but I don't, you know, present my work like an academic. I don't talk about my work with these big fancy words. It's like, this is, you know, what this is based on, you know, this image or these situations, this narrative. And that looks like life, that looks like imagination. So um, bringing all of those different conversations and getting to a place where now the work is more focused on spirituality, definitely heavily focused on kinship between, you know, friend, family, lover, different intimacies that we don't see and ones that we, you know, have daily, but, you know, aren't reproduced and seen as, um, I get looked at as common um, to to happen naturally, basically. So yeah, I think that's definitely like where I'm, like the space that I've gotten to in the work now.